At the time of writing this, now the 1st of February 2025, the California wildfires that started on the 7th of January are reportedly still burning. Almost a month later, but it is claimed that they're now contained. The current estimated costs for the damage of the wildfires of 2025 is being estimated in the press as being in the region of $275 billion. To say this was a mess does not even slightly cover it. That, in the top left corner there, is the Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, standing in front of a load of burned out properties while smiling and doing a little dance. What the hell is this guy's major malfunction? He got accused during the pandemic of acting like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, and if I didn't see it at the time, I certainly do now. It's like there's something wrong with him. This behaviour is not normal. At least it's not where I'm from. Is this normal for America? I know Americans tend to be a bit more upbeat than us Brits, but this hardly seems like the time for this. Maybe once the fires are out, then you can do a little dance. The fire caused extensive damage to areas of California such as Pacific Palisades and Malibu. Just to put this in context and scale, the cost of the damage is higher than the yearly gross domestic product of most countries on Earth. By International Monetary Fund estimates, the cost is higher than the total economic activity of the country of Greece in an entire year. It's around double the estimated cost of the damage done to Ukraine during the first 2 years of the Russian invasion, and this guy is smiling. How are people seriously talking about this guy running for president after this? There seems to be a lot of anger being directed at the politicians in charge, in particular the Governor Gavin Newsom and the Mayor of LA Karen Bass, alongside accusations of mismanagement from them, and I can understand why. Because this was all kind of a perfect storm of bad decisions. Why did the fire department struggle to put out the fires? Well, part of the problem seems to be that Mayor of LA Karen Bass cut the fire department budget by over $17 million. The fire department had a reduced number of staff and, according to the fire chief, didn't have the resources to fight the fire properly. It's also claimed that a lot of the fire engines are not currently running, which may be due to the reduced funding. There's also a problem of a thing called Proposition 47, which distilled down basically means that criminals wouldn't face jail for stealing as long as what they stole cost less than $950. It resulted in a lot of footage of people stealing from shops, and this just got overturned. But it appears that some enterprising citizens took this as an invitation to go around LA stealing fire hydrants to sell for scrap metal, reportedly around 300 of them, which would be more of an issue in fighting fires if the fire hydrants in Pacific Palisades had not also run out of water anyway.
The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation to understand what was happening with that local reservoir.
So when I see defences of Gavin Newsom coming out saying this was all due to climate change and drought, just skip me with that. Drought didn't steal the fire hydrants or reduce the budget for the firefighting service. A lot of the power lines in LA are also reportedly overhead lines, held up with wooden poles. Wooden poles in an area prone to wildfires. I mean, at least the fallen power lines probably won't start any more fires if there was enough fire under them to burn the poles down. What that may also do, though, is cut electricity to any water pumps you're using. But it seems it may not be quite as easy as all that, as it's alleged that during high winds, power lines on wooden poles can sway, causing sparks to fly when they contact each other. And this, according to the United States government court case against the local power company, caused the 2017 Thomas fires in Southern California. That one cost a couple of $1 billion. In the Maui wildfires of 2023, it's alleged that the high winds blew the wooden poles over completely, where in places they were holding uninsulated live electrical cables that dropped onto dry grass. The high winds then fanned the flames. That one cost a reported $5.5 billion in property damage. And I don't know what the correct answer is for LA on this one. You maybe need a collection of very smart engineers for that one. There are metal pylons that can be more wind resistant. Burying electrical cables is more expensive but is probably safer. But as Bill Maher says,
it's also, yes, undeniably true that LA is built in a stupid place to build a city.
And he ain't wrong. The high winds are pretty regular in that part of the world, between 10 to 25 times a year, so you need power lines that are wind resistant, with the added problem that LA gets quite regular earthquakes because it's built next to the San Andreas fault line. Given this collection of claims, can anyone explain this behaviour from Gavin Newsom? Frankly, this is some of just the worst political optics I've seen in my entire life. I thought UK politicians were bad, and I thought that because they are. This is current Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, talking about Israel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
And yes, he really did just plead for the return of the sausages. And the reason he said that is that Keir Starmer is a complete Burke. And yet somehow Gavin Newsom still manages to make him look almost good in comparison. I mean, I like a nice Lincolnshire sausage, but not quite that much. And given religious rules, I can't think pork sausages are too popular in that part of the world anyway. But who is the LA fire chief that's been overlooking all of this?
The good news is our fire chief is a lesbian. Crowley's official bio says Chief Crowley leads a diverse department, creating, supporting, and promoting a culture that values diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Oh, well that's okay then. This is a statement from the bio of that fire chief that manages to mention diversity twice in a mission statement, but at no point mentions fighting fires as a priority. The fire department isn't there to be diverse. The fire department is there to fight fires.
Deputy Chief Kristen Larson said this.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you.
Which would sound kind of racist if a southern sheriff said it.
It's frankly quite hard to disagree with Bill Maher on this one.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Oh, that's alright then. What she had to say there was truly shocking. By her own admission, she's doing a job that she isn't even qualified to be doing. She also isn't exactly just a deputy chief, as Bill Maher said there. That woman is Christine Larson, the deputy chief in the Equity and Human Resources Bureau of the LA City Fire Department. They have one of those, by the way. They just don't have enough working fire engines, or firefighters, or water. Do I think a lesbian can be a firefighter? I don't see why not. Should they? Yes, if they can meet the standard. Is this woman involved in hiring for the fire department? Because if so, kind of worrying that she thinks the melanin in the firefighter's skin is very important. But if they can't do the job, that's the victim's fault for being in the wrong place. It has been a truly golden age for representation. LA's had its first lesbian fire chief, and New Zealand had its first ever lesbian naval captain. And half of LA burns down, and the ship ploughed into a reef, lit on fire and sank. And this effing guy, thinks it's a good idea to stand in front of the burned out husks of people's houses, the houses of the people of the state he's the governor of, with a big cheesy smile on his face and doing a little dance. I was somewhat taken aback by that piece of footage that I first saw courtesy of a clip on the Joe Rogan Experience on YouTube. Now, call me Mr. Suspicious, but when someone is the governor of a state that is currently on fire and people have lost their lives and the estimated damage is maybe $275 billion, I get kind of suspicious when the guy in charge of this state starts acting, well, not concerned, not heartbroken, but is instead looking and acting like he just won the lottery. Now, I'm not saying there's anything crooked going on with this guy's finances, but this guy frankly looks far too happy at the idea of land speculators coming in to buy people's burnt out property from them. Maybe the guy just has no idea how an actual human should respond when standing in front of the burned out wreckage of people's homes and lives, the people whose homes and lives he's the governor of. But this makes me suspicious to the extent that maybe the authorities should be looking at this guy's finances with a magnifying glass in the very near future for signs of any large deposits coming in. because every subsequent news story about the political leadership in LA that's come out has made me raise my eyebrows more, and they're now threatening to come unmoored from my head and fly off. Now I wanted to talk about this because he already looks bad, but upon further investigation I think Joe Rogan has kind of got this one wrong when he described Gavin Newsom as being happy at the idea of land speculators coming in and buying up people's land cheaply. I say that because I don't think that's what Gavin Newsom was talking about. I think he was actually talking about putting in legislation to stop developers giving lowball offers to people for their property.
I'm here in Altadena. I just signed an executive order with community leaders to deal with the issue that is becoming a bigger and bigger issue every day, and that's land developers that are engaging in predatory efforts to make unsolicited offers for properties at significantly below market value.
I don't know how well that's going to work and what the correct market price is for a piece of land that could turn into a towering inferno at any moment. So let's see what LA Mayor Karen Bass has to say about the situation.
Angelenos, we're still going through it, and to any of you and all of you that have experienced a loss, the grief, the anger, the just utter shock, I've seen the devastation.
Stop smiling, you ditzy tart. What the hell is wrong with these people? There's maybe a time to be positive, but this sure as hell isn't it. This is surely a time to be serious, and at least act like you're trying to mitigate the damage. It's some of the worst political optics I have ever seen. Firstly, it's alleged that the people of California had multiple days' notice that strong winds were coming, and fire was a real danger for LA. And it's a horrible look when that happens, and for the person to be in charge of the city to be out of the country. In Ghana, in Africa, at a party. I'm not American, nor do I live in LA, and even I'm seeing red at this. She's living it up while the city she's the mayor of is on fire. Now, would it have helped if she'd been there? Looking at her performance in this interview, I highly doubt it.
Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Have you no response to that? Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning?
There have been suggestions that California has to reduce red tape to allow people to rebuild quickly after this fire. But realistically, this is all going to happen again. And it's probably just a matter of time. Everybody should know this is going to happen again. And the reason I know this is because of the tree, the sequoia, the giant redwood that is native to the Sierra Nevada in California, and these trees supposedly confused people for quite a while because they couldn't work out how to get the seeds of the tree to grow. Eventually it turned out that the seeds need to be exposed to fire. That's how regular the wildfires are in that part of the world. So regular that tree species have evolved to depend on the fire for their life cycle. The optics for the politicians involved seem to have been as devastating as the fires themselves, because Newsom keeps on getting caught being dishonest about what's been going on. While on camera,
The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That
We do know, though, from reporting here locally, that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation to understand what was happening with that local reservoir.
I mean, yeah, why not just lie to a journalist's face? What's the worst that can happen? And sorry, that isn't going to cut it even if it was true. If all of the reservoirs were full and there still isn't enough water to stop the city burning down, then the capacity of the reservoirs wasn't large enough, was it?
Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please stop.
Literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the call.
Why is the president not taking your call?
I mean, yeah, why not just lie to a heartbroken woman's face because you don't want to talk to her? Just get caught lying about being on the phone to the president. Much better idea than talking to one of the peasants. This is all coming off to me like a guy who's just taken out a large insurance policy on his wife, and they've been heard arguing a lot, and he was having an affair with the nanny, and then the next day the husband and wife just happened to go on a hiking holiday and the wife happens to fall into a crevasse, and by the next day the guy's having a party and has shacked up with the nanny. Now, that doesn't mean he's guilty, But anyone who hasn't got at least a little suspicion about that widower and his story may be altogether too trusting for the times we currently live in. So what can California do about all of this? I know there's an urge to rebuild quickly, but there should maybe be a lot of thought going into how to stop this happening again. Some things to consider may include looking into ways of making the buildings more fire resistant in at-risk areas. Concrete, steel and brick are probably a better idea than wood in at-risk areas. You could make it mandatory to have cut-off valves so if a house burns down, water doesn't start gushing out when the mains rupture, leaving no water for the fire service. You can increase the capacity of the reservoirs and the speed at which water can reach hydrants. It appears sprinklers are already mandatory in new build houses, so if you're thinking of cutting regulations to enable people to rebuild quicker, maybe don't cut that one. In fact, maybe offer government grants to subsidise installing sprinklers, cut-off valves and fire-resistant cladding in older buildings in at-risk areas. Coming down like a ton of bricks on the people stealing fire hydrants, making sure there's adequate supply of hydrants in any area, and, well, here's a radical suggestion. It may be a good idea to bin Patrick Bateman, and I don't think it takes an effort to recognise that if you want to more effectively fight fires, well, it may be a good idea to increase the funding to the fire service instead of reduce it. You know what won't work? Blaming climate change. This is just catastrophic levels of idiocy.
If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.